Dr. Ken, your pinned post on X is a quote from Oprah Winfrey that says, "Empathy is about finding humanity in each other." How does one go about finding humanity in others?
Great question. Great question. You know, so much of our times we end up running around so busy and isolated these days. And many times we really need to just stop, breathe, and start to listen to one another again and actually center ourselves back into relationships. You know, it's so easy to get caught up and be busy in our work and our to-do list. But life is lived in our relationships. And so making sure we carve out that time for family, for friends, for ourselves, to find that authenticity in relationships.
So you don't believe in that Maslow hierarchy of needs, where you gotta focus on your house and your income first, and then comes relationships. You would do the Simon Sinek version and make sure that you gotta do your relationships right first, and then you can go about finding your house and your income.
Yeah, when I'm living in a fear mindset, it filters everything. And so I can't even see the path forward when I'm living in the fear mindset, which is really what Maslow's after there, that I have to deal with that as a first step. But the reverse is also true. If I don't have a vision about where I'm going, if I don't have a feel that that's a reality, if I don't have relationships that will support me to get there, it makes it a much harder road to go
Yeah,
when I just focus on the baby step. Of,
yeah.
so,
So how do you then see empathy in the process of seeing humanity in others compared to compassion? How is that differently? How is that different?
sure. So empathy is going to begin with my being able to hear you, you're being able to hear me. And I can have feelings all day long, but if I don't actually begin to share them, if I don't begin to be vulnerable with those, I can't ask for help. I may be stuck there with struggling for my house or my food, or, you know, all those base Maslow safety and security issues. When what I really need is someone to believe in me on the days when I forget, or really need to be able to support someone else and bring a higher meaning that keeps me motivated even through the difficult days. Because very often the days will go up and down for all of us. You know, we have a easier day, a better day, a worse day. And how do we begin to have empathy for ourselves and sensitivity for ourselves as we move through those experiences, as well as build those collaborations for others as well. You know, so many of the challenges that are around today are because of that lack of empathy or because of that isolation. You know, I talk with guys all day long who have become isolated and can't label our emotions, trying to do it on our own, trying to be high functioning and ignoring ourselves, and quickly turning to other things that are low quality. You know, be that
Yeah,
social media, be that alcohol, be that a whole range of things
yeah,
that could distract rather than
yeah.
allow us to be authentic in relationships.
So how important then is self-love in the pursuit of finding humanity in others? Are you of the belief that one has to love oneself prior to being able to love others, or can loving others come before loving oneself?
They're synergistic,
Okay.
so it's kind of like, if I need to believe it in myself, but there's days where if I forget, I need my team, because my team's around me helping to remind me and move me forward. You know, there's an old saying that if you want to know what your salary is, take a look at your five closest friends, and it's probably usually the average. And that's not just salary, but that's also my mood and my attitudes and my emotional state. You know, because my team around me, small or large, is it's a integrated feedback. That's why the empathy becomes so important. They help me as I help them. So coaching each other, supporting each other forward into recognizing those shames, talking back to them, saying that's BS,
Yeah.
and moving through neutral into self-love, self-respect, and others. Critical.
Yeah. I love that. I love also Simon Sinek's definition of friends. What are friends? Is two or more people agreeing to grow together. I think that
Exactly.
makes, yeah. I really like that. When I heard him say that the first time, it just
That,
clicks.
that
It's about
that's one
because
of
that. Sorry, go ahead.
that's one of my comments about the marriage vows. You know, like Ken's version of the marriage vows is that, you know what, life's gonna suck, and I don't know how it's gonna suck, but I just know it's gonna suck. It'd be richer. We're gonna be poorer. We're gonna be sick. The commitment isn't that I know how things are going to be perfect in life, that I commit that whatever shows up, we're going to figure it out together.
Yeah,
It's a commitment to personal growth together, you know, and we certainly always hope for the best. But over the course of 50 years, 60 years, 80 years, you know, things are going to happen for folks, and we
yeah,
support each other through it, whatever it comes up.
yeah. I love that. Did you grow up in a safe environment with loving people?
As with everybody, there's always a mix there. And it's really important to find those safe spaces in your environment, as well as how do I recognize the places that wasn't as safe, that were alone, that were bullying, that were all of those pieces. Because what it felt like when you're growing up is very different than what we may be able to recognize as an adult. You know,
Yeah,
as kids, we're trying to get through the day to day. You know, and we kind of put that all into autopilot, which is very real,
yeah,
comma, at a certain point, you know, wherever I started, whatever the safeties and vulnerabilities were, I took the wheel. And it's
yeah,
my opportunity to make those changes on a daily basis now.
yeah. I've read in many books about how trauma manifests in those moments as a child that we were just trying to keep ourselves alive, and we created coping mechanisms over those young years living with our parents. Obviously, our parents, mine at least, didn't intentionally. I believe most parents
Right.
don't intentionally try to hurt their kids emotionally or in any way. But
Exactly.
those unintentional moments of lack in attention and love and whatever a child would need to grow up feeling safe and taken care of.
Right.
It's and how that manifests. I read a book by Alice something, the drama of the gifted child. I don't know if
Yeah.
you read that,
Yeah.
where she opened my eyes to the reality that when you do grow up in a place like that, that we spend a lot of our adult lives trying to seek it, trying to find it, go look for what you didn't get as a child, and we do so in unhealthy ways. But then her solution to that is not to go seek it, because you can't find something. You can't go back in time. You can't find what you didn't get, and even if you get it today, it's not going to be as satisfying as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So her solution to that is to mourn the fact that you didn't have it.
Yeah.
And that to me made a lot of sense. Because there's energy stored in your cells, and there's stress, and there's whatever it is that makes us whoever we are in our vulnerable states. But
Yeah.
then mourning that, releasing that energy in a way, just made a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And there's so many ways, especially when we're growing up, but even as adults, where we can get stuck on something, where we
Yeah,
can, and this is where emotions become so critical because I'm afraid and I don't want to deal with it, or I'm angry or I'm hurt. And so we kind of lock it away and say, well, I'll never do that again. I'll
yeah,
never let somebody hurt me that way again. But if I'm walking down the road with my head turned backwards, I'm going to trip. You know, exactly to your point. It's good to recognize those things from the past, but really need to unchain from them so that we can run forward and grow forward. Because the more of those things that I've got chaining me down from my past, it slows me down in being able to move forward.
yeah. That's a great segue for my next question, because what I am currently working on is mastering my emotions. And I see you shared a quote on your ex not long ago about mastering your emotions. So how would you go about doing that?
Sure. So I tend to think about it in a 4-step process. First is recognition. You know, I can't change it if I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
Now, I, and this is usually 80% of the problem for most folks.
Yeah.
That I'm not aware of the range of my emotions or which one is driving me,
Yeah.
because emotions are like the fuel of the car. But if I'm not aware that I'm scared, or because I'm busy wearing that hat that says no fear, as if anybody doesn't get scared sometimes. So if I'm not aware of it, I can't address it. I can't find a solution for it until I'm aware.
What's the step after that?
Next, I'm a toolbox kind of guy. So find the right tool for that problem, right? Find the right tool for that emotion, for that trauma, for that chronic learned negative behavior, whatever the right tool is. And I've collected through the years, everybody I work with gets access to my toolbox. It's got dozens of tools, and I'll say, do this tool for that, do this tool for that, or I'll do it with you.
I feel like a lot
So
of people struggle with victim mentality. Me being one. What tool do you use for that?
so there's a couple of pieces to tease apart. One would be what are our beliefs and our mindset about it. That this is who I am. This is my identity. That sort of belief system. But then also the emotional system of that grief, of that shame, and of that inadequacy. Not to put words in your mouth, but for folks
I
who have
understand.
something like
Yeah.
that, so we've begin to recognize both of those together first. Then you see how as soon as you start to label it, it gets easier to then begin to say, okay, what's a tool that can work with that? So am I really the victim? Where are some places where I'm not a victim? Is that true that that's who I am as an identity? And as soon as you start to go down that path, no, that's not who I am. It's something I've experienced,
Yeah.
which just that subtle word shift begins to untangle the identity. I'm a person who's experienced lots of things. That's very different than I am a victim,
Yeah.
as a label, as a badge of honor, as a scarlet letter. You know, so by shifting out of identity, that already begins to free me up.
Do
Emotional things
you,
reverse about how to begin to show self-respect, how to begin to practice self-respect. So, for example, can I think of 3 places where I was actually successful and overcame challenges in life? Notice just by directing the supercomputer into the places where that victim mentality is not true, I can go in and access the things that I've overcome. It's like very often it's easy to focus on the drama story, but not realize what strength and resilience it may have taken you to have overcome so much.
yeah.
You know, by
Love that.
leaning at it moves you forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does when it's not like it's every day, but I do have moments in which I feel stepped on when I haven't.
Yeah,
And there's this story that repeats about being hurt.
yeah,
But then I know, like I'm aware enough about the fact that I know the truth about what happened, and I can see the situation without me being a victim in it.
right.
But there's this emotion that stays there, even though
Yeah,
I feel like I think through it rationally in an altered state. I still have this emotion that sits. So
yeah.
do you use a journal? Do you go for it? Like what do you suggest people do?
You're really moving into step 3 there. So once you make a change, how do you make it stay? How do you make it
Yeah.
consistent? Because we can shift a perspective in seconds, but very often we have ingrained learned behaviors, and I won't bore you with the neuroscience of this for the moment, but it's kind of like when you were a kid and you learned your times tables. 5 times 5 equals 25. 5 times 5 equals 25. 5 times 5 equals 25. We learn those victim beliefs or those fear beliefs or those whatever that may be, just the same way that we repeated it over and over and over again
Yeah.
for
So it's
decades.
practice.
Exactly. So there can be two key elements. It depends on the situation, but two key elements in step 3. One of which is the practice of I steer to the positive and then practice maintaining that. And the other is sometimes, like we talked a moment ago, I actually need to go back into the past and rework or unhook from something specific that's got me chained back there. So the two slightly different paths that work well together, but depends on the individual situation. So if
Yeah.
I'm still looking back and tied back to that, I'm never going to let that happen. You got to unhook from that, because that's going to keep me replaying that same
Yeah.
mindset. It's
Yeah.
almost like being addicted to the victim mindset.
Yeah.
So we keep seeking it, and on a biochemical level, that's exactly what's happening. We start to crave the neurotransmitters associated with anxiety, with
Yeah.
depression, with victim, with whatever
Interesting.
it may be. So we
Yeah,
reset.
it's really the same. Each athlete will tell you how do you score 3-pointers often. Like you score 3-pointers often. Like you shoot 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
But this is more of a. It's not necessarily to practice something that you don't already. Well, in a sense, I guess it is. But it's also about unlearning, right? It's also about rewiring.
It's rewiring is more accurate.
Yeah.
So I can't. So if you've already learned 5 times 5 equals 25, how can I get you to unlearn that 5 times 5 equals 25? You can't unlearn that. Once
No,
you've
because
learned
it's
that, that's
both
deeply ingrained.
true and yeah.
You know, I have through the years found basically 2 ways to actually do that. One of which, well, both of which involve brain trauma. A car accident,
Okay.
something of that nature. Once you've learned something like that, you kind of can't unlearn it. But that doesn't mean I need to go and live that memory again.
Yeah.
So the rewiring is about, once we've carved in a Grand Canyon in the world, it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I can go to a thousand other places and never go back to the Grand Canyon again. I can live a very full and happy life without going back to the Grand Canyon again, although that was a nice experience to go visit at one time in my past. I don't need to be there anymore.
Yeah.
I want new experiences. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to, anywhere else. You
Yeah.
know,
Anywhere else.
you know.
I love that. Yeah.
So
So even though we don't live it, even though we have lived it, we don't need to return to that place. So then rewiring means obviously being aware and
yes.
then changing the perspective
Hmm.
and then reminding myself of moments in time in which I have overcome and I have actually how what other words would you put to that? Not overcome, but
So practicing a new way of being,
practicing a new
practicing
way of being. Yeah.
of what I want to be. If I've practiced shame for decades, you know, I've never learned how to be empathic, how to be loving. I've practiced how to be shameful and judging.
Yeah.
So I'm learning now a new skill to next level it, which is going to affect my relationship with myself, with my partner, with my business, with my, you know, everybody. And so I mentioned about having our team together to support us on all sides. We want our team to be growing with us. It's really
Yeah.
valuable because, it makes it easier along the way,
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
as leading each other's skills,
Yeah. Love that.
which is where it's always
So
so helpful to support each other.
yeah. Do you ever think about balancing being a kind man and also being dangerous, meaning being soft and gentle, but at the same time setting clear boundaries and passionately, purposefully following a goal and a vision?
Sure. So think about that, yes, but I don't see them as opposites. So there's nothing that being kind or kind-hearted in and of itself does nothing to make you vulnerable. You know, you can be very kind and still have a boundary. So, for example, I give a talk on addiction recovery, and so for example, if a family member has my loved one is coming home from rehab, and you've stolen from me, you've done this and that and the other, I can decide that I'm so loving, I'm going to let you live with me and let you steal from me again because I'm being kind. Or I can decide that no, you've made some growth, you've made your rehab, and because I care about you, I want you to be independent and continue that journey in a recovery house rather than with me. So my kindness could lead me to having boundaries.
Yeah.
Out of the kindness, I'm
Yeah.
giving you the gift of independence.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a simpler example, when my child wants that 6th piece of chocolate cake, it's a kindness to say no.
Yeah.
They're
That
not
makes sense.
exclusive. You know,
That makes
um,
sense.
so, I always talk about the kind of the Goldilocks principle. It's where, it's not too much, not too little, just right. It's not about no fear. It's not about being frozen in fear. It's how do I find that courage at the center of it?
Balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I like thinking about that because it does seem like too much healing would soften a man. I had a conversation with a person just a few days ago
Mm-hmm.
about too much healing would just make him so soft he wouldn't be able to to seek out growth, to just
Yeah.
settle, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
obviously, if you go too much the other way, you're just going to be completely head heavy
Yeah.
and not enough soul in you, right?
Right. Well, and that sounds good, but it misses out a key point. How can you possibly ever have too much healing? So if I have a rose bush and I get it just exactly the right amount of sunlight and water and rose bush flower food, that's great. But by next month, it's going to be a different season. By next year, it's in a different world. Growth is a continuous process. It's not like I get a bunch of growth and healing and all of a sudden,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, every decade or so, my body gets an extra like ache or something, and you've got to continuously evolve. So that process is not a end point. It's
yeah,
an ongoing process throughout life. Where you
yeah,
learn new things, grow on. I, I needed my wounds from my past. I don't want to go back and live them again ever, but I needed them because they gave me the motivation and the insight to move forward in a certain trajectory.
yeah. Love it. Yeah. It does seem like moving with change is the way to live, to have an easy. It's not to have an easier life because easy lives might make it hard, but to, I guess, be fulfilled
Yeah, yeah.
and
And
yeah,
think about that the Goldilocks again. You don't want it too
yeah,
easy, you don't want it too hard. But I
yeah,
want to gear shift so
yeah.
that if it's getting too easy, I want to up my game a little bit, and so I stay engaged and excited. If it's getting too hard, maybe I need to slow down just a half a
Yeah,
step,
it's just the
just to
right
find my
tension.
pace. Yeah, yeah. We need a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
You know,
So with that in mind, how do you suggest or advise young men who might have a nihilistic worldview and they are struggling? I'm not one, but I do know people younger than me that might struggle with nihilism. How do you go about advising them to find purpose, something that they can enjoy and do with enthusiasm?
well, to begin with, they have to be willing.
Yeah,
And so I wouldn't be advising on doing anything because if they don't see a problem yet.
yeah,
This is my worldview, and remember, step one is awareness. I don't even know that that's a problem. I believe that this is all true.
yeah. So would
You
you
know,
then, when that step is sort of realized, Like, okay, yeah, I do understand that my worldview is messed up and it's not helping me grow and I'm unhappy.
Exactly.
Right, I'm aware now, but like, what now? Like, do you go back to the approach that we spoke about earlier?
Yes. It,
Reshaping perspectives, practicing somebody you want to be instead.
exactly. Exactly. So if this isn't working for you, what would you want your life to
Yeah,
be like?
yeah,
So just by asking that question, we're already shaping a redirection about what can you do that matters? What can you
yeah,
do that makes a difference? What's a
yeah,
small step forward towards that?
yeah,
And then you do another step, and then you do another step. It's like the best basketball player out there, since we mentioned basketball, didn't get there um, in an instant. They didn't wake up one day and say, "Let me just shoot a 3-point shot."
yeah.
They got there by recognizing and then practicing one step and one small step and one small step.
Makes a lot of sense.
There's an old issue where people want to make $1 million, and they think, oh my gosh, that could never happen to me. The only way to get $1 million is to be born into it or to win a lottery. That's the only way I could do it is win a lottery. That's actually not where people become millionaires. The most common way to become a millionaire in this world is by a small amount of savings built up over time. I practice and I practice and I practice. That's the
Yeah,
most common way to make that growth. It's not to say that business can't grow in certain other ways as well, but the most common way to get there is I started and I put a couple of dollars away a week, each week, each week, each week.
yeah,
So practicing a bit of compassion, practicing a bit of empathy, practicing a bit of hope, practicing a bit of self-respect. All of a sudden you wake up and you look back and say, dang,
Do you use a
I've got a lot.
journal? Do you suggest people use journals?
Yes, I love journaling. They're great practices. There's lots of ways to do that. So I do have a journal which pairs with my emotions book, for example. So it kind of gives you prompts to kind of continue through things. I'm also a fan of blank journals. You can use them in a number of ways. One is to get some recognition of my thoughts outside of my head. Sometimes my thoughts sound really normal when they're inside my head, but once I write them down, it's like, I'm thinking that.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds funny when I say it out loud,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
And the other way I like to use it is like a gratitude journal. What are 3 things I'm grateful for today? What are 3 things I did today that I'm proud of? Something of that nature, which causes our brain to reorient to our strengths, which were already there. But
yeah,
if we're filtering them out, if we don't take the time to recognize them and celebrate them,
yeah,
I'm going to keep stuck on that old victim mentality rather than stuck on the empowered mentality.
yeah. I love that. How do you go about helping somebody? For me, it was a mess. It was messy growth out of a ton of different addictions. It was like I was smoking weed, I was watching porn, I was playing video games, I was drinking alcohol, I was scrolling my phone all day long. Like I had so many things that were absolutely occupying me and just making me miserable. Like for me, it was a mess. There was no structure to getting out of all that. But nevertheless, I still defeated all of those things. So then, for someone who doesn't have the wherewithal to do it like I did,
Mm-hmm.
how do you help somebody out of that? Do you go
So,
meticulously, one thing at a time? Like, how do you approach that?
sure. So go back to the simple basic steps. First is awareness. With this particular issue, there's a number of other layers, though. One is the severity. So for example, if it's very early, if it's very light, I might be able to manage that on an outpatient basis. I might be able to handle it with some support. If it's gotten more progressive, some people do require more of an intensive approach or more of a residential approach or even a medical approach because their body may be so deteriorated that they
Yeah,
need to be in a physical hospital. So you've got to get the right intensity of space first. To your point, addiction as a term means to be chained. It means to be enslaved. So when I'm starting down the road of addiction, I'm in control. But as I go down the path, I lose control. That's the definition of the process itself. So I typically need something outside of myself to help kind of pull the head up and say, oh, that does sound really weird when I say it out loud,
Yeah.
to gain that outside perspective.
Yeah.
And it may be a loved one grabbing me by the arm saying, hey, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it may not be an intensive residential programming, but whatever it is, it's like, hey, man, do you realize you're doing this?
Yeah.
A caring friend. And so the first step is that awareness, and then the motivation to make those changes. And then without being too,
Patience.
making a vision, and then, exactly as I said, checking those off,
Practicing.
practicing a step
And
forward.
then a big dose of patience.
Yes. Big dose of patience, and more so than patience even is self-compassion. That because when I see it, I want to fix it immediately, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's that rush to I want to get out of this,
Yeah.
and I may not believe that I can. So, kind of trusting myself, because actually things change a lot faster than we
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah.
Very often you can think about I don't want to simplify it to my last drink, my last bet, my last, you could, which means is actually a turning point, a specific
Yeah.
moment in time, even down to a thought, a decision
Yeah.
that changed everything. So things change in an instant, even though, they go off down a different trajectory. Just like when I come to a road, I can turn left or turn right. Makes a world of difference, but it
Yeah.
only takes a second to make the change.
Yeah, personally, that was a big turning point. What was a big turning point for me was realizing that I was using shame as a motivator.
Mm.
I was shaming myself into action.
Yeah.
And the moment I realized that is when, and I started to switch that around and started to be more compassionate to myself. Everything felt so light, but at the same time, it was an interesting process because the moment after, when I fell back into bad habits, I
Mm-hmm.
knew that shame wasn't going to help me because
Right.
that is what had already destroyed me.
Yeah.
I guess destroy is a really big word, but more like made it worse.
Yeah.
So it felt wrong the first time I didn't use shame as a motivator to get myself to do
Right.
something well. It didn't feel right. Like I was like, no, this is not going to work. Like I was trying to be positive about, like I was trying to show understanding to myself. I was trying to write in my journal so like I can try again.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be better. Everything in me was just revolting. Like I was just feeling so out of
Yeah.
place. But over time, it just made absolute sense to go that route. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's kind of like I've got this old pair of sneakers that I love. They are so old; they're like shaped to my foot. It's like exactly right, but they're so old they're falling apart and they stink. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and then I got these brand new sneakers that are like the nice things that are supposed to really be scientifically blase, whatever the heck. But they don't feel right. They feel awkward.
Yeah.
And this is just like our mindset. It's like when I'm in this old mindset, it's old familiar. It keeps calling me back. I keep wanting to go back to that old familiar, even though I got these brand new shoes that are just so much better right here in reach. It just takes a minute of go ahead, try them on,
Yeah.
enjoy the new
Yeah.
ride,
Yeah.
and that is the
Have
new
faith in
normal.
the process. Have faith in the process. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the one of the I'm gonna be a little bit more selfish here and ask questions for my own good.
Okay.
The times where I've managed, because it's been really many years where I've jumped in and out of bad habits,
Mm-hmm.
and I could go months and months and in a better path, and then something in me would just start feeling great. I was just feeling great, but then I was
Mm-hmm.
so unused to that. I wasn't used to feeling so good that it felt uncomfortable.
Right.
And then I started rationalizing why it was okay to fall back into habits, bad habits, because, well, I'm good now. Like, I can do that thing that will destroy me. I can do a little bit of it. I can just have a little taste again. And
Yeah.
then before I know it, I was all back in. So I'm sort of waiting for that moment again now. Like, it's been a few months. Well, it's been more than that, but obviously the addiction layers are many, and
Yeah.
the most intense ones are sort of out of the system. But at the same time, I'm sort of waiting for that, burst in energy that is going to lead me to start rationalizing why it's okay to go back again. So, what advice do you have for me in that moment?
So, are you expecting to fail again?
I'm,
You're
I don't
watching for
expect to
it.
fail, but I'm like afraid I will. Does that make
Is
sense?
that is that expecting a
Is it?
failure? I'm watching for it. I know someday this is going to happen. I got to keep on vigilance for this for forever.
Yeah, maybe I am.
You feel it?
Yeah,
It's subtle.
yeah,
It's subtle. And it's not about going out into blind fear, but if when I build my life strong, that's that route that blocked off old Grand Canyon. I'm not anywhere near it. If I go to Africa, I'm not anywhere near the Grand Canyon. I don't need to be watching every corner to see when the Grand Canyon is going to pop up.
right.
You know, in that
Yeah, now
fear.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. So
Yeah,
when and if it happens, you already decided that that's the road you're not walking.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get it.
And
I get it.
if you're looking for it everywhere, expecting it, I'm going to shape something up to give me that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're
Interesting.
playing golf. You look
Yeah.
to the right, you
Yeah,
start
yeah,
going to the
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I know
You know,
about the reticular activating system in the brain.
there you go. There you
Yeah, that makes a
go.
lot of sense. Yeah.
Now, the other thing that can happen in there, and you see what I mean about how quickly we can recognize it and identify it, is there as we move from shame to neutrality to self-love, sometimes there can be other beliefs that can kind of sneak in there. Am I worthy of this full new life? Am I worthy of 10xing my life in a good way? You know, and you see how subtle things can start to then say, oh, well, if I'm not worthy of that, then, I know how to
Honest.
sabotage that. I know how to keep from getting there. I don't really
Yeah.
deserve that.
Yeah.
You know, I joked about the lottery winners. Very often what happens when you have a lottery winner is that they don't have a mindset that I'm worthy of that. And so then they sabotage it and their money is gone and they're broken in a month.
Yeah.
You know? So
So it's about
that's,
how I see myself.
yeah, that's what I say about, is it possible to have too much healing? Because it's an
Yeah.
ongoing, growing process
I see.
as each layer unfolds,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So,
Dr. Ken, that was great. I really appreciate your time. I think
my pleasure.
that's a great place to round it off. And yeah, it's been very helpful to me. Hopefully, it will be helpful to a lot more people whenever this airs. So once again, thank you, and I really hope we can do this again one time.
My pleasure. I love this stuff. Always happy to support, and people can reach out to me for more support as well. Anything that's around, I love this work. So I
That's
always
awesome.
appreciate it.
You can tell us where we can find you on socials or on your website or.
Sure. The easiest place to catch me is drkenmartz.com. Is my website. That will have a link there directly for resources for upcoming events, my books, et cetera, and also on the various socials as well. So, love
Awesome.
this work.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.